I've worked for several years in the Poets in the Schools programs sponsored by arts councils in 3 states. A standard ploy in our efforts to loosen up and stimulate the kids' imaginations is to get them wondering, like Ken, how it would feel to be some creature or thing they're not. Steam shovel, garden hose, vacuum cleaner, wild horse, 100-year-old turtle, old man on a park bench. For elementary school children, the game is primarily physical, kinetic. But to older children, I read my poem, Plaint of the Summer Vampires, which pretends to be a lament voiced by a mosquito and a deer fly. At the end, these insects wail together. Oh, to turn aphid! Oh, for unresistant leaf juices and no murderous mammoth hands whacking. Never to be tangled again in hair or spotted on your wrist sipping, and no chance for a getaway. Though you knock me senseless a dozen times, or flail me away, what can we do but sort our wings and legs and try again, again, and yet again? Starve or be slapped to death is what it comes to. Pity us. The thirst for blood is a curse. As a way of learning how to take alien points of view, this sort of exercise is excellent, and some children do very fine things with it. Traveling from ducks to insects to people, the IF method of the Stanislavski School of Acting is also excellent for limbering up one's imagination to the point where the sufferings of the Chinese, or in our own day, the people of the Sahel, become real to one. The Stanislavski method, of course, asks, how would I act if I myself were in such and such a predicament? The situation, rather than the personality, is the thing to be imagined. But as a calisthenic, it is beautiful, since thinking oneself into some unfamiliar situation as oneself is a step directly toward being able to imagine oneself into somebody else's skin. The exercise becomes emotional as well as intellectual, which is, of course, very important for its efficacy. This is a quote from I. Sudakov in Acting, a Handbook of the Stanislavski Method. It would be well to learn the nature of the most elementary action, not only in a purely intellectual manner, but also with one's whole being, by working upon a great mass of experiments and exercises. It is necessary, by proceeding from one's own inner self, and not from a character, to substitute all kinds of ifs, to ask oneself, for instance, what would I do if I had to wait a long time for the train? Or if I found out that I lost my last bit of money? Or if I were told that people are waiting for me at the place where I work, and I am still at home, still in bed, etc. Teachers of the method advise one not to worry about feeling. Go through the motions in a genuine way, they say, and the feeling will come of itself. For us, endeavoring not to perform well on stage, but to live well, the questions multiply. How would I feel if, as much as what would I do if? Or why would I do what I would do? How would I feel and what would I do and why if I were, for instance, an Alabama black man? Not everybody can personally undergo what John Howard Griffin did and wrote about in his book Black Like Me. Take medication to darken the skin and shave the head so as to be able to approximate the experience of a black living in the Deep South for 7 weeks. Griffin almost knew, briefly, what that was like. The rest of us have to try and acquire the data we lack, put it at the disposal of our imaginations, and let them do the rest. When the novelist William Styron used his imagination to write The Confessions of Nat Turner, many voices were raised not only in disparagement of his novel, but also against his even attempting to make the leap of races and conditions. Yet all fiction writers, and playwrights, and filmmakers, for that matter, must make similar imaginative leaps, and will be judged as Styron has been judged, by how convincingly they portray the characters whose points of view they've done their best to assume. Readers and viewers value storytelling for its power to let them identify with the common elements of humanity in characters very different from themselves. If they can't identify, they lose interest fast. In art, we expect the imaginative leap to be made for us. In life, though, we have to make our own. Unless we make it, and make it habitually, we frequently remain mutually mistrustful strangers and even enemies. A vital goal of all movements in quest of social liberation is consciousness raising, an omnibus term, which involves, among other things, making the oppressive factions of society aware of what it's like to be oppressed. Managers and workers, men and women, straights and gays, whites and non-whites, normal people and deviants. All the oppressors need a means of understanding emotionally the grievances of the oppressed. And the oppressed groups can benefit themselves from a means of understanding the points of view of their oppressors. Henry Kissinger has made a diplomatic career of explaining peoples in conflict to one another. In private life, the imagination, or emotion, powered by factual information, or the intellect, could, if exercised assiduously, make simply astonishing headway toward breaking down factionalism, the sense of us and them. Become me. Then see how you want to treat me. And observe straightway the superiority of habit over rule. For unlike the golden rule, this habit of imagining assumes that subtle and profound differences exist between individuals, serves to help us become comprehensible to one another despite those differences, and searches for the common humanity that underlies them. If that humanity can be tapped using art as a tool, it can be reached by bare hands digging too.